Yeah. Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
We are recording, so I'm ready to get started whenever you guys
Cool.
are.
I'm ready when you guys are. That look okay?
Yeah,
Great,
absolutely.
man.
Look fine, man. You look looking good. Yes, sir. Yeah, he is a stud.
Baby.
That's right. We looking like a legend. Yeah.
I have to say it's really nice to meet you, Ben, because I feel as though I hear your name all the time.
Yeah.
Ben
me too,
Volin
man.
from the
Me
Boston
too.
Globe.
Awesome. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you know.
that very much.
Yeah, the coolest thing is it's like, yo, these guys are just like us. You know.
Exactly. Right. That's the best part. I know. That's awesome.
Put our pants on one leg at a time, just like everyone else.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, we'll get started here. Y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast, where the fans of the pros go back at you with another one. My boys Vlad, Barry, and a special guest, senior NFL writer at the Boston Globe for the Patriots, as well as the NFL, and host of the Ben Volin Football Hour Saturdays on WEEI at 12 to 1. Ben Volin, how y'all doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, doing great, man. Amazing. Right. Excited to have you on here and to do this, show and podcast with you and talk some Patriots and some NFL, with the preseason coming up this week. So I know it's an exciting time for all football fans and, for people that, enjoy the game of football. So we're definitely happy, having you here and looking forward to having a great episode today.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's I really appreciate you guys having me on, and we're 2 weeks into training camp now. It's Monday night. We got one more practice to go, and then we finally got our first preseason game. So there's just in 2 weeks, a lot's been going on already. So there's plenty to talk about with the Patriots.
Definitely.
Absolutely, man. And again, thank you for coming on. If you're watching, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel and make sure you're following Ben Volin on Twitter as well. I saw you tweeting about practice today. I think you tweeted something about Cam Newton throwing a nice 25-yard pass to James White there. How was practice today?
It was a beautiful throw. James White was running a wheel route down the right sideline. Cam lofted it perfectly. It went right over Kyle Van Noy. James White made a great over-the-head catch like this. Came down with it 2 feet, 25 yards down the sideline. That's what you want to see from Cam, showing some touch, showing that he can push the ball downfield a little bit. He also had a nice deep touchdown to John Smith today. And then it's funny, 2 plays after that wheel route to James White, Cam Newton got picked off in the red zone across the middle from Adrian Phillips, who is quickly becoming my favorite player on the defense. All he does is make plays. He's everywhere in that defense. He's kind of the new Patrick Chung. They bring him up in run force. They use him in coverage. He's just one of these hybrid, linebacker safeties. And Phillips, he made a lot of plays last year, and already in camp, he's really stood out. So that guy's quickly becoming one of my favorite players.
Was that a bad read by Cam Newton, or was that a great read by Adrian Phillips?
Without the benefit of instant replay, I don't know if I'm qualified to assign blame on what happened. I do know it was a throw over the middle, and I think Phillips kind of undercut the receiver and made the pick. And Cam's had a few of those during camp. To me, the thing is, you can't get too high or too low based on what you see out there in practice.
Right.
You don't know what they're working on. You don't know what the read was supposed to be. Practice is the time to make mistakes. Let's not forget also, because these guys practice against each other every day, the defense gets to know the offense pretty well. Sometimes practice can be way harder than anything these guys see in a game just because of the familiarity. So I really, I've been covering the NFL now for nearly 15 years, and that's one thing I've learned is, certainly it's important to take note of kind of what happens out there, but to put too much, stock into like the picks and it's foolish because you don't really know what's going on. It'd be like, if you're watching the Red Sox and you watch batting practice, you're like, wow, David Ortiz was 16 for 21 in batting practice. Like it just doesn't necessarily always translate to the game. So it's, like when Newton throws a pick today, it's important to note, but that doesn't mean, Newton's sinking and Mac Jones is rising. I mean, we really don't know what they're truly working on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a dominating story for this season on, right? As long as Cam Newton is here and Mac Jones, so we see what's being reported. I feel like a lot of the media sometimes is biased. Sometimes I feel like, some stuff is kind of unfair, when it comes to Cam Newton. But, you are at practice, you've been at practice. What's your feeling on, what the team is going through right now and how good is Mac Jones?
So it's so fascinating because even from the night they drafted Mac Jones, Belichick has been clear. Cam is our starter. And I don't think it's lip service. I think when you're watching practice, like I'm looking for an open competition and I just don't see it. Like Cam is the starter. Now that could change. He could fall flat on his face. Cam could rise over these next 3 weeks. It's not just certainly how you start in training camp is important, but it's how you ascend and build off each week and do they see improvement. So I don't want to say it's closed by any stretch. I think Mac Jones, in theory, could win the job, but I think it would take Cam really falling flat on his face, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think Belichick even knows Cam Newton, not necessarily a practice player. He's not necessarily a 7-on-7 quarterback. Cam Newton is a game day quarterback. He makes plays with his feet. He makes plays just throughout the course of the game that you can't really simulate in practice. And I think barring injury, it's Cam Newton's job. I think he's clearly running with the starting offensive line, with the ones. He's the one starting every drill. Now, they're getting Mac a lot of work, and I think Mac is certainly on an accelerated schedule. Like, you go back and look at some of the other young quarterbacks they've had, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jarrett Stidham. Those guys kind of start as, like, the scout team quarterback, and eventually they ascend to number 2, whereas Mac is already starting as the number 2 guy. Hoyer is clearly the scout team quarterback, and Mac is getting a lot of reps. I just don't know, is it truly a competition? Or I tend to think the coaching staff sees it as this is the time of the year to get Mac to work, because once the season starts, the backup quarterback does not get a whole lot of practice, a lot of work during practice. So this is the time, these 5 to 6 weeks in training camp, this is when you need to get Mac as much work as possible. And I think they want to see where he's at and how much he can handle. But I would be shocked if Cam is not the starter week 1 through early in the season. And I think if Belichick, in his perfect world, Cam stays healthy, Cam is productive, and Mac can sit the whole year, and he can just kind of learn and be a sponge and absorb everything. I think they would prefer Mac to be over-prepared when he's ready to go in. Now, look, if Cam starts playing horribly and he's really holding them back and they start 1-4, Belichick, I think, will make the switch. I don't think anything's being, handed to Newton. He doesn't have tenure or anything like that. So he's going to have to perform to keep his job. But I think Belichick wants him to perform. And I think Belichick wants him to be the starting quarterback.
Do you think Cam Newton has, enough leeway to lose, let's say 2 games in a row?
So that's the fascinating angle of all this is, I mean, the minute he throws an incomplete pass, all the fans are going to be screaming, let's see the kid, let's see the first pick. So he's gonna have to
I feel like a lot of us was like that with Jarrett Stidham. We're like, put Stidham on the field and then
and it was really telling last year that as poorly as Cam played toward the end of the season, they didn't go to Jarrett Stidham. He stuck with Cam. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. They have a lot more invested in Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones has a much higher ceiling than Jarrett Stidham. But, sorry, what was the original question again? Oh, how's he going to hit? I think Belichick will stick with Cam. He's not just going to replace his quarterback, after one bad game or anything like that. I think he's going to give him a real chance. But if the season starts slipping away, I mean, if they're 1-5, Belichick is not going to that. I think that's what it will take early.
1-5.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think that will be the case.
That's even worse than last year. Right. Let's hopefully that's not the case. Right.
Honestly,
right.
like
God.
I think what they need out of quarterback this year is a guy who can convert a few third downs and a guy who doesn't turn the ball over. Because I think they got a great defense. They'll be able to run the ball really well. And they just you hate to say it, but they just need kind of the game manager at quarterback.
Just going to say that was going through my mind too, right?
Yeah, and I think Belichick just trusts Newton as a veteran to be safer with the football, make better decisions than Mac. And maybe, I think the hope is Mac will get there. But I think Belichick still has the faith in Cam Newton. But again, if Cam is not performing, he's holding the team back. And look, they spent $175 million fully guaranteed this offseason. They are not messing around. They do not want to go 7-9.
Nah.
If this season starts slipping away, they will make the switch. But I think Belichick wants Cam to succeed.
Absolutely. There's also some other guys on the team, and we know preseason starts on Thursday. We're going to be playing the Washington football team, right? So who are some guys we need to, look for in these games?
Well, those are kind of two different questions. I think the preseason games are really going to be about some of the younger guys. We know what Kyle Van Noy can do.
Yeah.
I think now that Hunter Henry's hurt with a shoulder injury, like put Jonnu Smith in bubble wrap. Don't risk it. It's just not worth it. And you'd like to see Cam and the first team offense go out and get some reps together and get some cohesion. But to me, the preseason just is not worth it. And heaven forbid they lose Nelson Aguilar. They lose Jonnu Smith to some injury. That would just be the worst feeling. So, as far as like what, who to watch for, I'm still looking at the receivers. That's a pretty fascinating competition. I think the top four are pretty well locked in between Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, and Gunnar. Gunnar Olszewski's been – today he was phenomenal. He was getting some great separation. Edelman, it took Edelman until year 5 for him to really come on in the scene. So Gunnar's in year 3 now. I wonder if the light's going to start clicking on a little bit more for him, and maybe he'll get some more action. But then after those four – N'Keal Harry is a fascinating guy, and he's such a physical specimen out there. It's just mind-boggling why he hasn't been able to live up to his potential so far through 2 years. And I know he requested the trade, but he's cheap. He's only $1.4 million this year, and it's fully guaranteed. So the Patriots are going to own that unless they can trade him. So I would, unless you could get a good trade offer from him, I would give N'Keal Harry another shot, see what he can do, and see if he can pull it all together in year 3. Then there's a couple young guys, Isaiah Zuber and Christian Wilkerson. They were on the practice squad kind of up and down last year. But, between those three, I think they're really maybe battling for one roster spot. So, who gets the targets, who makes the big plays, who's getting a lot of the snaps in the preseason game, I think that's telling. And, offensive line as well. David Andrews went down. He's a little banged up, so that might open some opportunities for Ted Karras and other guys. But, it's a good showcase for the younger guys to see who can get the last 10 roster spots. But, I just think with where the Patriots are at injury-wise, and especially with Hunter Henry already going down, I hope that Belichick, if he does play the first team guys, it's like for a series or two and then get him out of there because you just can't risk injury at this point.
I hear a lot about Wilkerson, in a lot of the reports, and it kind of like reminds me of like a Maurice Harris or something like that from last year, I think. Is he better than that?
It's hard to tell, especially when you have 3 guys like that, Harry, Zuber, and Wilkerson, who are all kind of showing up and making plays. To me, that says, it's training camp. It's one thing to do it in practice. Now let's see who can do it in the game, situations. They all 3 are making really nice plays on the ball. To me, the guy that stands out has been Zuber. Every time I look up, Zuber's making, hauling in some 40-yard pass or getting great separation on a corner. So it seems like maybe a different day, a different receiver steps up. N'Keal Harry has had a nice camp. I think some of the positivity you're hearing about him might be an effort to, get that trade value back up a little bit.
Right. I've seen a lot of positivity lately.
It's almost too much. It makes
diving catches and all that.
Hey, too many positive vibes, right?
But you know what? Maybe year 3 is when it all clicks for him. I'm telling you, like when he's out there standing next to the fellow receivers, he looks like a man among boys. He is just big and physical and thick, And just for whatever reason, it has not translated on the field. I get the sense that the offense isn't natural enough for him, and he's just thinking too much. He's not playing fast. But, I mean, you look at him, and he just looks like a beast. So, maybe this is the year he should be running over guys and through them and making contested catches. And maybe this is the year he does it. But, certainly the Patriots aren't counting on him to be a big part because they did bring in Bourne and Aguilar. And, receiver is still – it's going to be a secondary part of the offense. It's going to run around the tight ends and the run game. It's going to be a lot of 2 tight end sets, a lot of play action, a lot of Damian Harris. That guy, I hope he doesn't see one snap in the preseason because Damian Harris.
Yeah, we need to
I think if he stays healthy this year, he's going to be
that's
phenomenal.
A premium, keeping that man healthy.
Yeah.
Absolute premium. I wanted to ask you, Ben, so I was wondering what's been going on with Stefan Gilmore, because he hasn't really been at practice. I know there's a bit of a holdout with this contract situation going on, and him not and being happy with what he has been being compensated and wanting a bump this year, and even a long-term extension from the team, and the team seems kind of like reluctant to give that to him. So as far as what do you know about that situation with Stefan Gilmore, and just how important is his impact on that defense with him not being there in camp so far?
No doubt. So he skipped minicamp in the spring, which was mandatory, and he incurred $93,000 in fines, which the team could waive if they want to. And so the big question, and then he came out in July and said he's not happy with his contract. He wants to be paid what he's worth. So I guess the big question was, is he going to hold out? Is he going to show up? And he showed up day one. He reported on time. And not only that, he's been out on the lower field every day, doing his conditioning work with the other injured guys, anywhere from 6 to 10 guys on a given day are running sprints and doing their conditioning work. So I've said from day one, okay, he could have held out. He could have been a big distraction. He could have held in, which is what a lot of guys do now, like Jamal Adams and Dwayne Brown out in Seattle and TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. They're holding in. They reported, so they're not getting fined $50,000 a day, but they're not participating. They're doing as little work as possible so as not to get fined. That's not Gilmore. He's not being a distraction.
So those guys just come in and just hang out or something?
Yeah, exactly. They're injured, and so they're not participating in practice. I guess they're probably going through meetings and stuff, but they're not really doing the on-field work, and their team's happy. So yeah, that's the new trend now, is holding in, because players don't want to incur these fines of $50,000 a day, so they show up and they say, "Oh, my hamstring, I can't go. I just can't practice today." So Gilmore's not doing that. He's participating. He's invested. Sometimes at the end of practice, he comes up from the lower field and he watches on the sideline with his team. So clearly, I think he's trying to be a good soldier, and he's trying to prove to the Patriots that he's not a distraction. So I think the Patriots definitely now have to hold up their end of the bargain. I don't think they're just going to hand him over free money. Gilmore's, I think he's owed 7.9 this year, and cornerbacks in his range are making anywhere from 15 to 20. So, we saw a couple.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, but you know what? He's still a number one corner. He's still an elite player. He's
2 years away from MVP, right?
That's right. Even though he's going to be 31 years old this fall, he's still an elite player. He's not easily replaceable. The Patriots are clearly going for it based on all this money they spent. I think it would be really stupid of them to trade away Gilmore or make him upset. After spending all that money, you're going to hold out and pinch pennies with, your best player. So I don't know if they're going to hand him a lot of just free money. When even Brady and Gronk a few years ago, when they wanted a pay raise, the Patriots really just gave them incentives. So I think Gilmore's probably looking at something like that, where maybe they give him a little bit more guaranteed, but really they give him an extra $4 or $5 million that he can earn based on playing time and games active and Pro Bowl and Patriots defense finishing top 5 in points or whatever. They can find creative ways. But so I think they will give him something like that. The Dolphins just did a very similar thing with Xavier Howard.
Yes, I did hear about that. Yep.
So I think that the Patriots can and will do a very similar thing where it probably won't increase Gilmore's cap number that much, but they'll give him the opportunity to make several million more as long as he's healthy and productive. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly what Gilmore wants, but it'll be good enough. And so I think they will come to a positive resolution there.
I thought that was a way for Bill Belichick to give him a little break, just take a break for training camp. We'll come back on right before the season.
Totally. They don't need it. I mean, they do, though. I mean, it bumps everyone else up. And so you've got J.C. Jackson and Jalen Mills and Jonathan Jones as your top three. Then it hurts your depth after that. Jalen Mills has been a little shaky so far in coverage. But, again, it's early in camp, so it's hard to really say. But, I mean, Gilmore, none of the players on defense can do what Gilmore does with his combination.
Yeah,
Size and speed. And
right.
Belichick loves those number one corners. So
I
really think they got to lock him down, keep him happy, and make sure he's back and ready to have a productive season.
Well,
absolutely.
I think last year, because earlier you were talking about how the defense is supposed to be really good this year, and we're supposed to be running the ball. And I feel like last year we had poor performance when it comes to the middle of the field as far as the linebackers goes, and up front we could barely get any push last year. How do you think that's going to change this year? I mean, I know we got some guys in free agency and Calvin Noy, and then
some draft picks.
Hightower came back.
Godshaw.
How does all that gel together?
They literally remade their front seven this year, and you can tell improving their run defense was the top priority. I think they were 20th in the league last year in run defense. They were allowing 4.5 yards per carry. So Belichick clearly felt they were getting gashed up front. They let Adam Butler walk. Trying to think. I can't think off the top of my head who else they let walk. But up front, they signed Devon Godshaw from Miami. They signed Henry Anderson from the Jets. Then they brought in they have a lot of beef at linebacker. Kyle Van Noy, Matthew Judon, 275 pounds. People might think he's like an edge rusher, like a pass rusher. He's really more of a three-down player, going to be setting the edge in the run game a lot. I think that's where they felt Chase Winovich wasn't holding up his end of the bargain last year, wasn't sturdy enough, and wasn't able to set the edge in the run game. So they bring in Judon, who's bigger, more physical. He can definitely get sacks. I think his career high is only 9 or 10, though. He's not like Von Miller. He's definitely a bigger and more stout edge presence. But with Hightower, Van Noy, and Judon, then you've got Godshaw and Lawrence Guy and Henry Anderson, and they just have a lot of beef up front now. And so like what you see is like the nickel defense is basically the base defense now. So you need the bigger guys up front because you're only going to have – it's not a front seven anymore. It's really a front six.
Right.
So they've got a lot of guys. They could put a bunch of 300-pounders on the defensive line. They've got some big physical linebackers now. So I think they feel like they've really improved the run defense, and they'll be able to get the other teams in a lot more third and long situations.
Absolutely. How's I saw on the Bleacher Report, Christian Barmore is up there as one of the NFL defensive rookies of the year. How's he been looking? I know he got hurt a little bit, but he came back to practice. I've seen a lot of really good stuff being written about him. He gets a lot of push. He's demolishing guys one-on-one. How's he looking?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. That's the guy I forgot to mention. Second-round pick, Christian Barmore. There's only been 4 pads in practices. So, yes, he's certainly been looking good in one-on-ones. But that's another situation. Like, okay, he looked great against David Andrews. Well, okay, he's never going to play David Andrews during the season, So it's great preparation for them to get those reps. But, again, it's hard to tell. Just because he beats Ted Karras on a play, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have 8 sacks this year or whatever. But I think Barmore will be a good situational piece for them. Good interior pass rush. I talked to an executive for another team, another AFC team, and he said they really liked Barmore. He just thought it was a year where defensive tackle just wasn't as high of a priority in the draft, and so he just, you saw all the quarterbacks, receivers, corners, pass rushers. Those are the guys that went high, and so a defensive tackle like Barmore slipped into the second round. And I know there was some talk about character concerns, but this executive for another team I talked to said his team had no issue with Barmore and wanted to draft him and really liked that the Patriots, I think they traded up 8 spots to go get him. So clearly Belichick, had his eye on this kid and felt really good value when he was there in the second round. So, again, the fact that they have Godshaw and Lawrence Guy and Henry Anderson, that's great for Barmore because he doesn't have to have this huge role right away. They can kind of work him in slowly. But I expect him to be part of the rotation, and the Patriots certainly hope that he'll not only help with the run defense, but with some of the interior pass rush as well.
How long have you been covering the team now, Ben?
This is my 9th season.
9th season.
Yeah.
Nice.
Covered the Dolphins for nearly 5 years before that. So.
Wow.
Oh, sweet.
And can you tell me if there's a difference between the excitement going into training camp into this new season as far as not having somebody like Tom Brady there? Because I was hearing that there wasn't a lot of fans the first couple of days at training camps, and for you as somebody that goes there every day, and that's like, I'm sure every time the season is over, you're anticipating the new season, you're thinking about what's new, what's the excitement, what's the attraction. Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a noticeable lack of buzz at camp, no question. Now, to be fair, it's been mostly weekday practices. They haven't had too many weekends, and that's when people are, back.
I remember going to the weekdays. I felt as if the buzz was still there.
Yeah.
At all times, man.
Definitely.
Right.
I mean, the last 5 years, since like 2014 on, I mean, that's such a unique time and place with the Patriots and winning the Super Bowls and having Brady and Gronk. That was such an unbelievable era for the Patriots, and that's never going to be replicated. And so it's almost not fair to compare now to back then. It's not. The circus has left town. I mean, there's no more Brady, Gronk, all the guys. I mean, it's true, but
yep, Edelman, right.
Yeah, I mean, all the fan favorites are gone for the most part.
As much as I want to agree with you guys, I think the fact that Newton is a quarterback has something to do with it. Somebody that can't throw the ball, that doesn't wow you really with the ball. Somebody that was put up such a disappointing season last year. I feel as if that affected the stock of the Patriots.
Deflated a lot of things.
Yeah, and if I feel as though as fans, if we feel as though Belichick had put a master plan and had a good replacement for Brady, I think, like, for example, Jimmy Garoppolo was still here.
Right.
I think there would have been a fair amount of excitement around the team. I mean, I'm sure it would have decreased, but not as much as it has decreased.
Yeah, no question. They're coming off a 7-9 season.
Yeah.
Cam, you're right. I don't get the sense that the fans are totally thrilled with him. He has some supporters out there. He gets some cheers when he comes onto the field. Mac Jones, too, fans are definitely interested in seeing how he's looking, but it's just not the same buzz.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, like, last few years of Brady, the camp would open on a Thursday, and that practice would just be packed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You get to Saturday,
Yeah.
and not only is every seat in the stands filled, but then the fans were going up in the stadium, in the walkways, like the rotundas.
The ramps, yeah.
The ramps, yeah. And
I used to be up there. I used to be one of those guys up in the ramps.
I mean, so that was awesome. And then, you notice it from a media perspective. I mean, ESPN and NFL Network always used to come on the first day of Patriots camp, and there'd always be national reporters coming in, and there just hasn't been that this year. They're not.
Wow.
They're not the
wow,
sexy.
That's crazy. They haven't been over there yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not nearly as much. Not nearly as much. So you notice it, and you know what? I think Bill Belichick is just fine with it. I think
Bill Belichick
wants to be underestimated.
Bill Belichick is fine with it. Is Robert Kraft fine with it?
I think Robert Kraft's okay with it for now. Like, sure.
For now.
For now.
Yeah, right. And for the meantime, right.
I mean, as long as they're still selling out the season tickets, which they are, he's fine with it. But I do bet you that Robert Kraft wish wishes his team was on national TV more this year. I think they only got 3 national TV games instead of usually 5 a year. So I bet you Kraft wishes they had more buzz from that standpoint. But I think they're okay with being underestimated right now. There's nothing worse than going into the season with huge expectations.
Right.
So I think they're okay for right now. What Kraft won't be okay with is if they start 1-4 with Cam Newton.
Yep.
It's
gonna be very interesting around here. Very interesting. Sorry, John. Were you gonna say something?
Well, no, we were speaking about the older eras, and I know Ben's been covering the team for a long time now. So that means you've been through a lot of our scandals, a lot of the things that was going on, dynasties and everything. And I know you covered Deflategate. What was it like covering that? What were you looking for when that time was happening?
So Patriots fans don't like this answer when I say it, but I thought Deflategate was the greatest story ever. I had so much fun for those 2 years. That story had everything. It had, the league's greatest player, getting suspended, and the battle between him and Goodell. We had the most absurd scandal of ball deflation and just the clown show that was the referees trying to measure the balls at halftime, and they didn't even know about the ideal gas law or anything like that. We're sports fans, and we're talking about the ideal gas law, and we're learning all this stuff about science. And then it turned into a legal story, and I was taking the train down to New York and sitting in U.S. District Court watching these famous attorneys on both sides, argue about deflated. It was the most absurd, ridiculous, but incredible story. We were this close to going to the Supreme Court. I was rooting so hard. I would have gone to the Supreme Court over this.
I can see why it was fun for you.
As a writer,
I loved it. I learned so much about
so much
the legal
context.
process. I've never covered a lawsuit from start to finish before, so I just thought it was so fun. Now, look, I think at the end of the day, I think the Patriots did it. I think the fact that they made the 2 guys disappear and they weren't answering questions and they had some lame excuses about why they called themselves the Deflator. They did it. Brady chewed the guys out because the balls were overinflated. So the guys were taking the balls and, taking a pin probably and letting a little bit of air out. So I think in the end, they did it. They were guilty. Yeah. And the Patriots didn't help themselves by denying and accusing
Brady throwing over the phone
and Brady destroying his phone and the website, Wells reporting context, like they just did themselves no favor. That said, I do think the NFL went a little far, and it's fascinating to me that Goodell went so hard after Brady. You would never see Adam Silver go after LeBron or Major League Baseball go after Mike Trout, like their greatest selling point. Tom Brady's like the greatest thing going in the NFL, and you have them going hard after him.
Well, Jerry Jones had him like this, like a
no
puppet.
question.
Yeah.
No question. Roger Goodell was just taking orders, and it wasn't just Jerry Jones. There were a lot of people who wanted to see the Patriots punished. I'm sure the Jets were more than happy. So it was and like for me, like I got to go on like CNN and cable news and NBC nightly news to talk about.
Awesome.
It was just the most
that's
incredible.
Pretty sweet. That's
story.
Pretty cool, man.
So I loved it, and I was sad when it ended. I wanted it to keep going.
You think that started, that whole situation started a rift between Belichick and Tom Brady?
Yeah, 100%. I think, just Brady and the organization. I think Brady felt like he was thrown under the bus, didn't get enough support. From the get-go, Belichick said, talk to him. He's the guy. He's the one who touches the footballs. I have nothing to do with it. And then Kraft didn't support Brady. So I think that definitely started the rift. And then I think it just, widened into a canyon, after Brady won the Falcons Super Bowl, pulls off the greatest comeback ever, and they still won't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. He's like, what do I have to do for you people? I've won 5 Super Bowls, pulled off the greatest upset ever, greatest comeback ever. What do I have to do to get some respect from you guys? And so, once they didn't trade Jimmy, the gloves came off, And then the Alex Guerrero situation, Belichick's kicking Brady's guy off the team flights and taking away his sideline pass. Belichick didn't appreciate that Brady and Guerrero were like recruiting guys to go work out at TB12 instead of doing the Patriots workout program. Brady was upset that they didn't get him the right receivers. I mean, just one thing after another. And I think, you look at like what Aaron Rodgers is going through with the Packers. And to me, it makes you appreciate, like, I can't believe that Belichick and Brady still kept it together for 20 years. I mean, that's a long time to be with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Belichick, I'm sure, is not an easy person to be with for 20 years. So it's kind of remarkable that they made it last as long as they did. And even, I mean, they won a Super Bowl in the season 2018 when they had a lot of dysfunction. So it's impressive.
Oh, yeah.
It's really impressive that when push came to shove, they're able to put their feelings aside and still make it work.
You've gone through a lot of stuff, man, including the late, Aaron Hernandez. That situation was pretty huge, in Massachusetts. What was that like? I'm sure that wasn't, as much fun.
I was going to say, not nearly as fun. I do that story just kind of makes my stomach churn just because of, I think it's just so sad and tragic. A guy who had his whole life in front of him, baby daughter, millions of dollars, football career, and he, just threw it all away. And then we learned he was hiding his homosexuality, and that you feel for that a guy he didn't feel like he could be himself, and he had to kind of, I think, do the tough guy act to kind of overcompensate. And then you learn that he was, abused as a child and things like that not from his parents, but from other people. And it's awful all the way around. It happened a month after I got here. I moved here in Memorial Day.
Man, wow, that's crazy.
2013, and a month later, I think it was June 18th, he got arrested, and it's like, welcome to Boston. So that was insane. And I had not a weird connection, but I had a deeper connection than just being here to that story, just because I covered Aaron in college. I used to, my first kind of pro beat was covering the University of Florida when Tebow and Hernandez and Urban Meyer and all those guys were there. And inevitably I got asked after the arrest, like, what was he like at Florida? Did you know? It's like, no, of course I didn't know how bad of a person he was. If anyone had, hopefully things wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. But I will say, I had a friend, he was a student at the time, and he was like a student journalist. His name was Ed Ashoff, a great friend, great reporter. He ended up working for ESPN, and unfortunately he passed away last year. He was only 34. It was very sad. But Ed was a close friend, and Ed lived in a house of guys in Gainesville, and next door to them was a house of girls, and Hernandez was dating one of the girls. And so the two houses would hang out all the time, and my friend Ed he'd hang out with Hernandez a lot. And I just remember, is this R-rated? Can I use a curse word?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Feel free.
Just want to clear it.
No worries.
I remember Ed told me, he said, dude, Aaron Hernandez is the biggest piece of shit you've ever met. And I was like, why?
Wow.
And he said,
damn.
Like, you'd be throwing a party, and he'd show up with his boys, and they'd purposely trudge mud through your house, and they'd smoke cigarettes in your living room, and they'd steal something out of your kitchen, and just, like, act like shitheads, like entitled shitheads. Now, a lot of college football players are entitled shitheads, and they don't become murderers. So there's a leap there to Hernandez. But that's just something that always stuck with me, that Ed said Hernandez was just a terrible person. And so I guess we did see that eventually.
I do my homework on the people. Hold on, Vlad. I do my homework on the people that come on the show, just because, of course, I've been reading you for a long time, so me asking that question, I had no idea you had that connection, to Aaron Hernandez. So thank you for sharing that.
It's crazy.
Thanks, Ben, for sharing. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've gone back and read my stories, and, this is when he's like a 19-year-old kid at Florida. And, man, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. You got all these quotes in there, like from – Urban Meyer, like, what a great young man who dedicated himself to his schoolwork and turned his life around. And, yeah, he hit a sore spot when his father died, but what a great and we all fell for it. Like, we all bought the act. And even when he signed that big contract with the Patriots, he said, I've learned I've got to change my ways and I've got to be responsible now. And he was a con artist. He knew what to say to people and kind of how to be charming. He fooled Robert Kraft, and I mean, I don't think he fooled Belichick as much, but I don't think Belichick knew that Hernandez was capable of murder. I mean, I don't think they would have kept him around if they knew that was the case.
Only they draft him.
Yeah, I mean, but then give him that big contract too. I mean, talk about a huge mistake. So,
Right.
Hernandez he knew how to con people.
It's crazy.
Vlad.
No, go ahead.
For Vlad had a question.
No, go ahead, Barry.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. So, yeah, on a bit of a positive note, I know we've been talking about some pretty crazy
Some heavy
stories
stuff,
about the team. I just wanted to, ask you, Ben, I know as you've been saying you've been covering the team for a while. What would you say is your favorite moment in memory of covering the team so far to this point?
It has to be that Falcons Super Bowl. We're never going to see a game like that.
Right.
I lost my shit during that game too. I was in the press box.
We all did.
I wasn't cheering, but I was just caught up in the moment. Like, every big play, like, I just kept. I was standing up. I couldn't sit down. My feet were like pedaling like this, just like, oh my God.
Palm sweat.
I had to, those Super Bowls, any sort of night game is hard for a newspaper writer because we have these deadlines to get the paper out, and so you're writing starting late third quarter. You better start writing, and you need to have your story done 10 minutes after the game ends. So fourth quarter, like, you're rooting for a blowout so that the game doesn't matter and you can just write your story. So it was a blowout, and I had 900 words written about how they sucked, and boy, did the Falcons expose their lack of speed, and they've got a lot of work to do this offseason. And then, they get it to 28-12 or whatever. There's a strip sack from Hightower. It's like, hold the phones. This game ain't over yet. And, it was what a moment, what a game. The other one, obviously, I mean, this team is unbelievable. They're interesting off the field. They're interesting on the field. I mean, the Malcolm Butler moment just 2 years prior to that in the Super Bowl, it was another instance where late in the game, the entire press box was, you could hear a pin drop, just eerily silent because everyone's kind of writing their stories. And another game where it went back and forth so much, you don't know what story you're writing. Do the Patriots win or do they lose? And so it's everyone's just furiously just trying to compose their thoughts. And it looks like Seattle's going in for the winning score, and then Malcolm Butler comes up with this interception, and like I said, it's like deathly silent in the press box. Someone behind me just goes, "Fuck yeah!" And the whole press box stopped. And everyone turns around, and it was Bob Quinn, who later became the general manager of the Detroit Lions. He was still with the Patriots at the time. And he just couldn't contain himself. He was just so excited for the moment. He just unleashed this big F-bomb in front, in this very quiet press box. And, I mean, what a moment, what an ending that was. And, I mean, again, for this team to have that game and the Falcons game, and then, the Eagles game was crazy. Their previous Super Bowls were all crazy. This team is just – I always tell my friends around the league, like, I feel sorry for them. What do you write about all the time? Because none of your teams are nearly as interesting as what the Patriots have been over the years. There's just never a lack of material, never lack of something interesting going on. So I know it's kind of cliche, but the Malcolm Butler and then the Falcons Super Bowl, nothing will ever top those moments.
I'm not a writer, but as a writer, do you ever try to take the fans through your own emotions? So instead of rewriting the whole story, you just this is how I was feeling as the game was going on, and this is how it ended up being?
Yes and no. I don't try to make it about me because I don't think anyone really cares about me.
True.
But my coverage has changed a lot.
That's not true. We care about you, man.
Well, thank you. That's very
we do, man. Of course, Ben.
My game coverage used to. I would really try to find out, try to interview as many Patriots players as I could to try to get, little schematic tidbits. What was the big change? What was the big adjustment? And it's tough with the Patriots, man. They do not give you anything. The best material from that often can come from the visiting locker room. Sometimes a team that beats the Patriots, I go in there, they love chattering about how they beat the big bad Patriots.
Oh yeah.
But
this shit.
Yeah, but it's tough. The Patriots make it tough to do that. So especially last year when because of COVID, I wasn't really going to games. It's kind of more into analysis and opinions and takes, and so it's not my emotions, but it's my takes from the game more or less. And boy, Cam Newton really struggling with the deep ball. This offense is not going to survive if Cam can't throw the ball more than 10 yards. And man, what a great day for the offense! Did you see that great for the offensive line? Did you see that block by Trent Brown? So I just try to put things into perspective and try to have more analytical takes than just certainly you don't want to just like regurgitate the score and write just like a play-by-play of what happened, because everyone reading my story, they watched the game.
They watched the game already, yeah.
They knew what happened.
Right.
So they want to see my little spin on the game, or ideally they'd get some good insight from the players, but that can be hard from the Patriots. They're taught from the beginning to kind of keep everything in house.
Don't say nothing.
Exactly.
Right.
When I used to cover the Dolphins, so it's funny, I covered the Dolphins from 07 to 12 with a stop in Gainesville in between, but I was covering the Dolphins up here for the Wildcat game, if you remember that one in 2008, when Tony Soprano and the Dolphins came in.
Yeah.
Put a whooping on that was the Matt Castle year.
Yep.
Put a whooping on them out of nowhere.
Yep.
And they unleashed this Wildcat. And I think Ronnie Brown scored 3 touchdowns and threw a 4th, and just the Patriots just had no answer for it. And after the game, I mean, the guys in the locker room were awesome. They were like, oh yeah, we're working on it in the preseason, but then Ronnie Brown broke his thumb, and so we had to put it on the shelf for a few weeks. And then, Tony Soprano was like, well, we were on the airplane back from Arizona last week, and that's when David Lee came up to me and said, yeah, let's put it in. And Ricky Williams was just kind of like taking us through the whole thing. I mean, it's when you have players that cooperate and teams that kind of cooperate and can kind of bring you inside the game, that to me is the best stuff. It's just becoming harder and harder, especially with the Patriots. They don't really let you do that. But when a team does let you in and isn't afraid to kind of reveal how things came to be and how some of their strategy worked, like that's always what I enjoy writing the most.
So you're not surprised about Tom Brady's seemingly changed character in Tampa? No,
he's certainly a lot more free-spirited in Tampa. And he was becoming like that here in recent years. I mean, he was doing a lot more social media, and he did Tom versus Time. So it's not like it's not like he was totally buttoned up, but he's definitely got a much better balance down there. And Bruce Arians gives him more days off, even if Brady maybe doesn't even want it. And they've given Tom the run of the place, and they did it last year with being skeptical. Especially I think what were they 7-5 after 12 games, so it's not like things were all hunky dory. But they rolled out the red carpet for Tom, and then once he went on that run and won the Super Bowl, it's like, all right, Tom, we'll sign whoever you want, we'll run whatever plays you want. You're the boss here, and I think Bruce Arians is happy to ride on those coattails. And Brady's just found the perfect, like, low-key environment. Same with Gronk. They love it down there. There's no pressure. Bruce Arians let them do whatever the heck they want as long as they get their work in. So I think they're just loving kind of being away from the grind of Foxborough and what Belichick puts guys through.
Okay. I think my last question is what's your prediction on this season? What is the Patriots' record at the end of this year?
Call me a homer if you must. I think Cam is going to turn around. It kind of all depends on health, and adding that 17th game, it doesn't help. And this is a guy who he did play 15 games last year, and the only game he missed was due to COVID. But I'm still a little concerned with the durability. I hope he's vaccinated. We don't know for sure, but if he's not, he's putting his roster spot at risk every week if he's not vaccinated. But I think he's going to have a better season. I think with a second year in the system, having much better weapons around him, hopefully a better offensive line as well, better defense, just kind of better everything around Cam Newton. I think he's going to have a turnaround season. He's not going to be the MVP, Cam Newton, but he's going to have a nice year. So I think 11-6, 12-5. I think the schedule sets up much better for them. Not the most daunting schedule. Not too many crazy road trips. The late bye might hurt them. I think they don't have a bye till like week 14.
What's that, like week 14, yeah?
Yeah, really late.
Yeah, wow, that's extremely late. Yeah.
And that's another reason why I think Cam, I just don't see an obvious part in the schedule. Maybe after the Bucs game, I think week 5 they're against Houston. Maybe that's an easy enough game where you can put Mac Jones in there. Otherwise, I think they play like 1 o'clock every Sunday, pretty consecutively until I think it's week 11. They have a Thursday night game. So maybe after that, you can get Mac some work. But honestly, I think with the late bye and the late Thursday game, I think it's shaping up for Cam to be the quarterback for a while. And I'm optimistic. I think with defense, running the ball, hopefully eliminating some turnovers, better teammates, Cam more comfortable. I don't see why they can't be 11-6, 12-5, back in the playoffs. They're not on the level of Kansas City, but I think they'll be competitive with Buffalo this year. I think they'll be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the AFC.
Yes, Ben. I wanted to ask, what young player do you see making the biggest leap on the Patriots this season on offense and on defense?
Damian Harris seems obvious, and I know last year he took a big jump, but he still only had 600-700 yards somewhere in there because he sat out some games. If he can stay healthy, he's looking at a 1,300-yard season and double-digit touchdowns. One guy who I'm intrigued about is Devin Asiasi, the second-year tight end. Hunter Henry already banged up with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry's now
I know.
games.
Oh, boy.
They're going to need Asiasi throughout the season. And I talked to a few guys around the league who were high on him and thought he was a great pick for the Patriots and were a little surprised at how little he contributed as a rookie. So he's back now. He's off the COVID list. That's definitely a guy I'm kind of intrigued to see step up. On defense, good question. I think Josh Uche, second-year guy.
Yeah. What?
Well, and Duggar, too. I think Duggar is going to be a great
Carl Duggar, that's another one. Yeah.
Duggar's going to be, a guy who doesn't come off the field. He's going to be a 3-down player, 100% of snaps kind of guy. He might even be a 4-down player, getting a lot of special teams reps, too. Whereas I think Uche still might be more situational this year, behind Judon, Van Noy, and Hightower. But I think Uche is definitely going to be going after the quarterback, and I think showed some great athleticism last year. They'll use him as a spy against some of the more athletic quarterbacks. So I really like Uche and I really like Duggar.
No, me too. Absolutely. What have you been seeing from those guys in camp so far?
About the same. Again, I don't know what to make of defensive performances yet since pads have only been on for 4 days. But Duggar's everywhere. And Uche, you don't quite feel him as much because he's not usually with the starters. But, again, I just think he showed a lot as a rookie. And I think, tremendous athlete. And, Belichick, he doesn't play rookies a ton for the most part. I mean, I remember Jamie Collins was just a part-time player in his first year, and then he really exploded his second year. So I think Uche could be in line for a similar jump this year.
Ooh, another Jamie Collins? Huh? Like that?
Maybe that's lofty praise. So maybe I shouldn't put those expectations on Uche. But I think he's been
okay, get me excited there. Yeah,
he's a great athlete. He's going to be a good player for them.
Word, awesome. That's what I like to hear. Now that's good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Ben, it's been a really great time interviewing you and getting to chat with you about the Patriots. If you're listening, please making sure you're subscribing and following Ben on Twitter at Ben Volin. Hopefully we can get you back on here when the season starts, Ben. Thanks again.
That would be awesome. This was a really great conversation, and hope to see you guys out at camp soon. They got, I think, 3 more weeks of camp, so I hope you guys can come out and check out the action for yourselves.
Barry's going to DM you when we go out there.
For sure.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I will hit you up, Ben, on our Twitter and let you know as soon as, we all, plan, to go out there, figure out a day where we can all make it. And I'll definitely let you know. And we'll definitely, say hi and say what's up.
We'll meet up. We'll watch some reps together. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely,
Awesome.
definitely. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love that. So, yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Have a good
thanks
night,
for
Ben.
coming on, Ben. Appreciate it. It
All
was
right, I
a pleasure
appreciate you
meeting
guys.
you.
All right,
Nice
thanks a
to meet
lot.
you, Ben.
All right, have a good night. Take care.
All right.
Well, good shit,
Ben?
guys. That was a
Absolutely.
great interview.
You know, and if you're still watching, make sure you subscribe to the channel, support us, follow us on social media, Instagram at @profans_sports, on Twitter at @profansports, everything else at @profansports. Shout out to our supporters, shout out to our listeners, you know what I mean? Mess with us, man. It's Profan Sports.
Yes, and shout out to all the big time guests like Ben Volin that have been coming on this podcast. It's been absolutely amazing and fascinating, the guys that we've been able to bring on here, and the stories and insights that these guys have is just out of this world.